Review of May 4th to May 10th, 2015. Copyrighted May 2015, Simi Valley, California, by Doc Castellano, Doc C, PhD Company. All rights reserved. A couple of emails that maybe I look a little tired and ragged. Well, with reading glasses and now putting an emphasis on dotting the I's and crossing the T's, pronunciation, enunciation, I proceed. It is hilarious, really. I have to laugh at the King George, Queen, who were criminally insane, weird, immoral acts that are a circle jerk from their authority. They play with themselves. They're actually masturbating, hubris, that I actually reject and ignore, but occurred where they're making an effort to nullify or detract from the great achievements from May 4th to May 10th. In those days, tremendous, important achievements, historic achievements. So if it takes whatever time, I figure I will present something to clarify so that maybe they have a certain prejudice that gives them a certain amount of dementia because they just are incurable. So I have to laugh at them, really. I have now, I will read verbatim, save, important, verifying references, physics of the atom, analyze that, especially page 155, they have a diagram showing from A to B is the x-axis, like, and A to C is the y-axis, and they have from A to B is a swimmer, and the course, they say, of distance is L, and his velocity is going to be C plus V. They got C is velocity and V is the velocity of the river, and you add them, and then it's on the way up, and you C minus V on the way back. So this man that is going parallel to the river in the medium in reference to the earth, he is going, his time parallel will equal L over C plus V plus L over C minus V equal 2LC over C squared minus V. Thinking ahead, the man perpendicular, his time will be 2L over the square root of c squared minus v squared. He obtains that because he's going from A to C, but now per the principle and the Pythagorean theorem, where you have a squared plus b squared equals c squared, c is the hypotenuse, the sum of a and b of the sides, that sum, you square their sides, and that sum will equal the sum of the square of the hypotenuse. If you want to obtain, he wants to head upstream, he heads upstream in order to stay on course of A to C, which is L, which would be then the same L as the L from A to B. So that course now is going to be the component of the Pythagorean theorem, one of the sides, and it would be side B, where you have the right triangle ABC with sides A, B, the hypotenuse of C. So that can be expressed as the square root of c squared minus a squared. Well, a equals v, the velocity of the current of the medium. So you have the square root of c squared minus v squared. Now, what is important is that this is an analogy of two swimmers. And detractors might say, oh, well, you know, that maybe is not really significant. You have to realize that this has the same basic as the great important Michelson-Morley interferometer. That is really important. So I proceed. Now, we have then where we want to compare the two swimmers to see who wins the race. So you have the man with the time parallel equals 2LC over c squared minus v squared. The man perpendicular will be 2L over the square root of c squared minus v squared. When you compare them, you will have that the time parallel, which remember was 2L plus over c squared minus v squared plus 2L over c squared minus squared, that equals 2LC over c squared minus v squared divided by 2L over the square root of c squared minus v squared. Now, instead of dividing those two fractions, you invert and multiply, and you get that the time parallel will equal 2LC over the time perpendicular, which is a 2LC over c squared minus v squared times the square root of c minus v squared all over the c squared minus v squared all over 2L. I sometimes a little difficult to read my writing, but I'll repeat that. You invert and multiply, and the time parallel over the time perpendicular will equal 2LC over c squared minus v squared times the square root of c squared minus v squared over 2L. And that, from that you can obtain 1 over the square root of 1 minus v squared over c squared. That is tremendously important. You have to realize that when Einstein uses Lorenz's and Poincare's x prime equals x minus vt, that over the square root of 1 minus the quantity v squared over c squared, that 1 over the square root of 1 minus the quantity v squared over c squared, that is considered to be the relativistic term. Now, let's go where you have a little more explanation. The time parallel divided by the time perpendicular will be 2LC over c squared minus v squared times the square root of c squared minus v squared over 2L. You obtain 2LC, that quantity, times the quantity of the square root of c squared minus v squared over 2L, that quantity times the quantity c squared minus v squared, and that will equal c times the square root of c squared minus v squared over c squared minus v squared. Now, from that, you take and separate in the denominator and get the quantity c times the square root of c squared minus v squared over c, the square root, the quantity c squared, square root of c squared minus v squared times the quantity of the square root of c squared minus v squared. And that will equal c over the square root of c squared minus v squared. Now, from that term, notice, in my opinion, that Lorentz and Poincare are trying to obtain something representative, readable, usable comparing term. So, especially if you have, for example, 90 over c, and c will equal 100. So you have 9/10, 90%, 9/10, or 1/2 equals 50%, etc. Therefore, there's a manipulation of the math schema. And you take c over the square root of c squared minus v squared, and you square that, and you get c squared over c squared minus v squared. Then the numerator and denominator are divided by c squared. So you have c squared divided by c squared, that fraction, that term divided by the fraction c squared minus v squared over c squared. And that equals 1 over the term, the denominator of c squared minus v squared over c squared. Now, with that 1 over the square root, you take the square root. Notice the ingenious of Lorentz and Poincare. Now they take the square root, or the square root of 1 and 1, and the square root of that's in the numerator, and the denominator, the square root of c squared minus v squared over c squared. When you take that square root, you get the square root of 1 is 1 over the square root of c squared minus v squared over c squared will equal 1 over the square root of c squared over c squared minus v squared over c squared will equal to 1 over the square root of 1 minus v squared over c squared. That relativistic term. Now, how does Einstein say that this is his math and it represents all motion? In order to get to work as a college professor. And to make it binding, he decrees that c represents the velocity of light. And is and has to be the ultimate universal velocity. The actual true facts is that I insist, theoretically at least, there are velocities greater than little c, especially per my valid advanced concepts in theoretical mathematical physics, the philosophy of the capital C transformation equation. And that is, well, you have motion that is superluminous, faster than the speed of light. You have phase velocity, and if you measure the vibration, isn't that a motion per unit of time? That they say, well, no, that doesn't count. You know, that's doesn't leave a message, but the actual vibration from in a phase is faster than the speed of light. That's motion. And in group velocity from crest, from the high point, the lambda, from high point to high point, in group velocity, a group will equal phase velocity, equal or greater than the speed of light. Then there's discussion of tachyons. Then there's where CERN especially can get particles, they've announced, that are at least an increment greater than the speed of light. We'll work with neutrinos, Fermi's neutrino. And this is a particle that Fermi put forward, that most of it traveled through the mass of the Earth. Well, the Earth has great mass, but most of them pass right through the mass of the Earth. Well, if there's something a little of less mass than a neutrino with a greater velocity, and they certainly can pass through the mass of the Earth, and right now they're not able to catch those, and they say, well, that's not, you can't use that, but CERN does exceed the speed of light with particles. So, supposing that you're a theoretician, and it's in the previous century, 20th century. In that century, I was doing considerations in advanced concepts of theoretical mathematical physics as far as the 21st century, and then going forward as far as the 25th century. Do you understand? Now, all detail, distraction, and nonsense put aside, they cannot. See, I wouldn't elevate them to the discipline of political science with their great leaders and what occurred. Just tremendous. I can't elevate them to the discipline of philosophy with the great intellectuals. Those immoral, disgusting trying to be bothersome, hubris, and their weird gyrations. They do have a circle of authority, and they say we do this, and they pass it on down, and that's what they have to do. They play within themselves. They're masturbating King George, Queen Hoover hypocrites. That's what they are. So I have to laugh at them, really. At times it's hilarious that they would try to nullify or detract from the days what occurred from May 4th to May 10th. Now, I have put forward the Castellano capital C transformation equations, modernizing at least Einstein's opinion, and that what mine is absolutely provable in theoretical mathematical physics. I've put some of the steps as to how you obtain that relativistic term. I have capital X prime equals capital X minus VT, that over the quantity, the square root of 1 minus V squared, 1 minus the quantity, V squared over C squared, where capital C is at least equal to or greater than C, the velocity of light, thus breaking the light barrier, VLB. Well, who considers this? You have to understand that in April 1955, I conferred with Einstein one-on-one. It really was by secretly a showdown conference as to who would agree with who as to the future of theoretical mathematical physics. Do you understand? Yet all through the years, they say Einstein's thought of this and thought of that. There isn't anything he presented that wasn't somebody else's work. As a personal friend, I defended him because of E equals MC squared. Come to find out, it was originally written by Olinto de Preto, capital D-E, capital P-R-E-T-T-O, and presented at least a year before Einstein in a prestigious science academy in Italy. Absolutely. And Einstein obtained work and worked with a Michael Basso. And who is Michael Basso? They say he didn't give reference. He gave, and there was actually two references, but the real one reference in science is Michael Basso. Michael Basso is Olinto de Preto's cousin. They had a little academic club in which they talked about various things in science and showed each other's work. And Olinto de Preto showed him the work and explained it to Einstein. You understand? And then there's Olivia Merrick, who some say did some of the mathematics. She's a mathematician. Einstein flunked math at the university, and he was going to quit and drop out, but Olivia Merrick and Herman Minkowski, another mathematician, convinced him, well, get into science. Those are true facts. Now, you have to understand that the field equations were put forth by David Hilbert, published 3 days before, and a copy was sent to Einstein. He then took and had a lecture in a classroom where he put it on the board, and they say, oh, Einstein originated the field equations. Einstein originated the field equations because, yeah, he would do it, not Hilbert. Why would Hilbert, a top world mathematician, need Einstein to do his mathematics when Einstein flunked mathematics? that Einstein needed help with Hermann Minkowski in putting forth his papers, and Olivia Merrick. So my capital C transformation equation, valid by advanced concept in theoretical mathematical physics, is absolutely a proven reality of what in this dynamic, complex universe is, and at least can occur. And that is capital X prime equals capital X minus VT, that over the square root of 1 minus V squared over C squared. Now, I use X prime equals X plus or minus VT over the square root 1 over square root of 1 minus V squared over C squared. Because you cannot violate Galileo's law of the addition of his universal law of addition of component velocities. So, has the light barrier been broken? 1954 at least, and then in 1955, and Einstein accepted it and invited me to work with him on a unified field theory. Einstein never put anything, my research, and there are 1,000 exposés, and especially mine, anything he ever presented was somebody else had done that work before. And he presented a unified field theory. It was incorrect. You don't hear him mentioned and so forth. But he insisted it was good. And those who worked with him said they tried for a year, Einstein after a year, you better withdraw it, or those, and there are, of course, a lot of rumors then about his plagiarism, will begin to say, well, maybe it's true, you do plagiarize others' work. Then he retracted it. Do you understand? How do I know? I went all the way to Dublin, Ireland, to confer in person with somebody that worked with Einstein and was part of the group that finally, he says, we finally got him to withdraw it so that they wouldn't start saying, Einstein, you know, there is truth then about your plagiarism of the other work. And this was at the prestigious Royal Irish Academy of Science. Do you understand? Anything I present is valid, provable, and as far as the disciplines where I express my opinion, that's what this planet is and will continue to grow and be, and that is where the leaders of people who really are for the people of their government and other people to have logical, mutual trade and prosperity. That is reality. And as far as I personally, absolutely, they owe me honors and reasonable compensation by the law of the Constitution and civil rights and the Bill of Rights. And I say, of course, thank you.